Hello everyone, Loremaster of Sotek here, and it's time to scream blood for the blood god and skulls for the skull throne to the exalted heights of Khorne's realm, because we finally have the Khorne faction's campaign mechanics along with their demons revealed for Total War Warhammer 3, which is of course super exciting. Lots of cool stuff to talk about, so let's not waste any time and let's hop into checking these out. So just a quick reminder, these are not Scarbrand's mechanics. These are the mechanics of Khornate factions. And then when we get far enough, so we're starting with all Khornate factions, and then when we get further down to the bottom, we will be looking at the Khorne demon factions. So with that in mind, let's go ahead and jump into it. So first is probably the most obvious, and I think everyone is very happy that Khorne is really leaning into the almost meme side of, like, just really going hard and on his famous phrases for his mechanics. So first, we have the skulls and the skull throne. So just like we talked about with Tzeentch last week, I think it was last week, there seems to be a unique currency, that's the word I'm looking for each of the dark gods. And for Tzeentch, it was grimoires, and for Skull, it's corns. Because for Skull, it's corns. For Khorne, it's skulls. Good grief. So you will earn skulls by doing pretty much anything in the game. So if you're fighting in battle, you get skulls. You're fighting in a siege, you get skulls. You have post-battle decisions, you get skulls. You have dilemmas coming up where you're probably going to get skulls. What do your buildings generate? Skulls. And there are going to be skulls coming from even more sources. So one of the things they reveal that's a very cool, unique thing Khorne has going for him is you can actually just find skulls lying around. It's like free money, like just cash growing on trees. But in this case, it's skull piles. So just like how the vampire factions, the Vampire Coast and the Vampire Counts, are able to run around and find battlefields where people have died a whole bunch and use their corpses to, immediately raise a bunch of bonus dead, the same thing kind of exists for Khorne, except for him, it's purely a currency system. If you come across an area where there have been major battles, you will find skull piles lying around, and you can just walk up to them and collect them. Easy peasy. So you don't even have to be fighting. You can just send an army around gathering up skulls, as long as, they manage to avoid getting slapped by whoever it is that is causing all those skulls to be tumbling all over the place. So what do you do with skulls? Well, like we said, it's your currency. But one of the biggest things you can do is that you can dedicate them to Khorne and lie them at the throne, or the feet of the skull throne, which is where Khorne spends the vast majority of his time, sitting on the skull throne. And for those unaware, it is literally a giant brass chair that sits on a mountain of skulls that grows ever higher. And you can contribute to this, which makes Khorne very happy. So if you decide to pile your skulls on the skull throne, you will be rewarded with many buffs, the most notable being post-battle loot increases and a larger movement range bonus after raising settlements, which is something that, of course, Tarux kind of has going for him. Tarux is a character who's able to just kind of keep going after well, actually, the Beastmen in general have it as a mechanic, but for them, it's based on if they just raise a city, how they raise it determines how much movement they can get, but they can get bonus movement. But for Khorne, it's through his just dedicating skulls to the skull throne. So one thing they kind of talk about as part of this is that for Khorne, you're really not encouraged to build up an empire. That's not your job. Your job is not to sit down and build up settlements and slowly grind out growth until you can get everything to tier 3 and tier 5 and build up walls and do all this other stuff. No, that's not you. What you're supposed to do is run around and kick everybody in the face as much as possible. However, you can occupy settlements, which I think that we can officially say that between the Beastmen and Khorne, the true Horde system has pretty much been dealt the ultimate death blow, and I don't think anyone's going to attend that funeral because no one's going to miss it. So for Khorne, he can set up a settlement anywhere. However, if you occupy a settlement, it will cost you a significant amount of skulls because you have to properly adorn the place, the buildings have to be set up properly, and you must enact the proper rituals to, you know, instead of just burning the place to the ground, which is usually what the Khornes will go for. So sacking and raising are your more preferred mechanics, more than likely. But if you want to set up a base in an area, you absolutely can. It's just going to cost you a significant amount of your resource, which is great. So speaking of sacking and raising, Khorne has unique raising settlements, which is that if Khorne ever overruns a garrison, he has 2 options for raising. So you can sack as normal, but he can also raise a settlement. However, he does not raise normally. There are 2 different kinds of raising. You can either raise a settlement by doing skulls for the Skull Throne, or you could do blood for the Blood God. Brilliant. I love it. So skulls for the Skull Throne just generates a flat 1,000 skulls for your army. It completely destroys the settlement and kills everyone in it, because obviously you have to get those skulls from somewhere. So very, very useful if you're running low on skulls, or you're just trying to boost through some upgrades on the tech tree, or get you really want to activate your buff by giving the skulls to Khorne, or you're trying to just do something, then this will be your go-to option if you're really wanting to boost up your economy very quickly for some reason. However, the other option is Blood for the Blood God, which Blood for the Blood God greatly replenishes your army, and it spawns a new army which is called a Blood Host. The Blood Host is an army that cannot replenish or recruit, but is otherwise unlimited in its capabilities and costs no upkeep. So it's a free army that you get that spawns next to the settlement. However, you cannot do anything to heal the army, and you also cannot make the army bigger. So basically, it just gives you a free bonus army to either follow you around or go run around and do other stuff, but as it takes damage, that damage sticks. So sooner or later, it's going to die to something. It's not an army that you want to care too much about. It's really just meant there to go do other things. Now, the power of these armies, so how strong they are, is going to scale with how many you have created. So throughout your campaign, the more blood hosts that you spawn, the more powerful they get, which presumably there's a cap at some point, but I imagine for many people, Blood for the Blood God is probably going to be the option you spam the most often, unless you're just, there's some specific currency thing that you're needing or want to build up to. But this seems like it really has the ability to just kind of keep going to almost a ridiculous level. And they also note that at the start of the campaign, it doesn't start with a great number of units, but throughout your playthrough, you will be able to increase the amount of units they spawn with through various means. Very similar to how the Skaven do. So if you play a Skaven campaign, if you're using the Undercity system, you have the ability to basically blow up your Undercity and generate an army. And you can increase the quality of units and the amount of units in that army through your tech tree as the Skaven. So for Khorne, you're able to do it through your tech tree, and there are also presumably other things you can do in the campaign, other bonuses you'll be able to interact with that will allow you to further increase it. So they note that, as you can imagine, this army can then wander off and raise another settlement, spawning another army, who could then team up with their friends and head off to another settlement, and so on. And one of the really cool things is, unlike a lot of situations where something spawns in the map, the Blood Host armies spawn with their full movement available. So the second they show up, they can immediately run off and go attack something. So if you run into a province that's fairly tight-knit, like say some of the Empire provinces, for instance, it would be very easy to blow up one settlement, do Blood for the Blood God to spawn an army. That army attacks another, so say you blow up the capital settlement, right? The most difficult one traditionally. Then your Blood Host army could attack a minor settlement, blow that up, Blood for the Blood God, and then the new army they spawn could go attack the next settlement, and you could literally just keep going as long as they're in range and are winning the fight. Now, obviously, they will suffer attrition, they'll take damage in battle, whether you're auto-resolving or fighting it yourself, and they're going to degrade over time to the point where they will eventually die out. But hey, even if you, apparently you generate skulls even if you're losing a fight. So even if you just throw them suicidally into a battle and they all get wiped out, you still get skulls. So there's literally no losing here. So the last thing they talk about, and this is a really cool mechanic, is passive colonization. So one thing they talk about, and I think this is a brilliant mechanic when coupled with what we've already talked about with Khorne, is that, so Khorne, it's very, very expensive for your skulls, your skull economy, to take a settlement. To occupy a settlement is very expensive. However, if you take a settlement in a province and there's any ruins in that province, so like, let's say you take Altdorf, right? But the 3 minor settlements are all ruins. Over time, those settlements will be automatically colonized for free by your faction. And this is true for all Khornate factions. So you're playing Scarbrand, you take Altdorf, you claim it for yourself, and then you use your Bloodspawn armies or whatever, or you wait a turn and you raise everything else to the ground and keep moving on, right? While you're running around, your armies, or kind of your Khornates, will start to descend on these ruins and will colonize them for free, which is so awesome. Now, it does take time. It doesn't happen in like one turn. It takes a little bit of time, but as long as you make sure they stay ruined, so you just kind of keep an eye on the AI in the area and make sure they don't start taking all of the ruins you've left behind, then you'll get a full province for free, which is just crazy awesome. So the only restriction is literally you have to own at least one settlement in that province, and anything that you want them to colonize has to be a ruin. But other than that, it's free territory, which I think is absolutely marvelous. The next, and this is the last mechanic for Khornates. So all Khornate factions, regardless if they're mortals or demons, is Bloodletting. So the way Bloodletting works is that as long as you keep fighting, you will have buffs for your army and faction wide. However, should you stop fighting, so if you're sitting too long, or you're trying to build up an army and you're just not getting any fights in, you will begin to suffer global penalties. So your replenishment rate and your growth rate faction wide is going to start to go down quick. It's gonna get, very low. Not to mention that your lust for battle for your armies is also going to decrease. I'm assuming lust for battle means like leadership or something. I'm not sure exactly what that entails mechanically, but if you're not fighting, your empire is going to start to suffer. So you need to be fighting constantly. It sounds like it really doesn't even matter if you're winning, just you need to be fighting, which is going to make those blood host armies even more important. Even if you're just suicidally throwing them into superior enemy armies and getting them ripped to pieces, you're still fighting, and that's what matters. They do note that for all the armies you have that are successfully fighting, you will build up this bloodletting meter. And if your bloodletting meter is doing very well, it will increase your growth rate faction wide, your army replenishments faction wide, your global recruitment time, and more. Which it sounds like, I'm assuming global recruitment is probably going to be really important to all of the Chaos factions. But that's never a bad thing to have really, really good, as it can just allow you to replenish on the go. But especially since Khorne seems to almost penalize you for just constantly grabbing settlements, I imagine for him, global recruitment is going to be more important than it is for most armies. So it sounds like blood hosts are going to be a thing you are really want to go ham on as best as possible. So now we are heading on to the demonic mechanics. So the following mechanics, which unholy manifestations and cults, and then the tech tree we're looking at, are for the demons of Khorne. These are not for the mortals of Khorne. These are because there is a noticeable gap there. So for Khorne, we looked at Tzeentch's unholy manifestations last time, but now we're looking at Khorne's. Just like Tzeentch, he has 4, but you'll notice that the corruption the amount of corruption you need in order to unlock Khorne's different abilities is significantly lower than Tzeentch's. If memory serves, Tzeentch goes, you get the first one for free, and then for Tzeentch, it's 1,500, 3,000, 6,000. So it doubles every time it goes up. Whereas for Khorne, it's just 0, 1,000, 2,000, 3,000. So Khorne requires much less corruption in order to unlock his manifestations, but it also seems like his manifestations are not as powerful. But here's what they do. So the one you get at the start, and we actually get to kind of see the menu here, which is nice. So the first one is Eternal War. Eternal War, which I honestly think may be the best one. Well, no, the 3,000 one's pretty amazing, but this one's really strong, is that you get to summon a free army that will attack the army you use this ability on. So like you will click the Eternal War button, it'll tell you to select one of your armies, and you will use it on, say, Scarbrand's army, and it will spawn an army that attacks you immediately, a small one. And you just get to beat the crap out of them, which allows your bloodletting meter to go up, and it gives you skulls, experience, etc. This is a system that people already use in the current game. Like, people who are power gaming in Total War Warhammer 2, one of their most reliable tactics when you're trying to cheese the game, like you're using a legend strategy, so to speak, is that you can raid or do things to purposely nuke your own control, or which is what public order is called now, but just to nuke your control to cause rebellion armies to spawn. Because rebellion armies are very, very easy to beat, and you can just attack them and slap them across the face and just get free stuff. Khorne has that as a built-in mechanic, which I think is genius. I think that's a really good way of like acknowledging a strategy that is used by a lot of the community and just giving it as a tool. Next, he has Call of Battle. Once you've reached 1,000 global corruption, which gives an army that you choose 50% bonus campaign movement. Awesome. So you can just run across the map and kick somebody in the face. Slaughter Incarnate, which requires 2,000 global corruption, doubles an army's skull gains from battle for several turns. So if you have an army and they're on the front line and you know you're about to be tearing through a whole bunch of different places or fighting in a lot of big battles and you got some quest battles coming up or something, then this one's a really good one if you're just really wanting to up your skull generation. I think this one is one you'll want to use whenever it's off cooldown. And then Khorne's Glare, which is very powerful, requires 3,000 global corruption, and you use it on one of your armies, but they have to be in an enemy territory. And when you use it, it disables that army's movement, so the army is just stuck basically performing a big ritual. And once the ability goes off, it will automatically raise the local settlement and give a massive number of skulls. That is obscene. So if you're playing against an enemy and they just have some kind of garrison structure that you're just like, oh man, I don't want to fight that. Like you're standing outside Karasakarak and it's like got a full 20 stack in it and it's really well garrisoned and you're just like, man, I just don't want to deal with this. You could literally just sneak so you're just inside that region and start performing this ritual, and all you have to do is make sure that army is not interrupted, so is presumably not defeated in battle. And once it goes off, Karasakarak will just go kaboom, and you just get a massive number of skulls, which is incredible. And also, the really nice thing is that we actually get to see the unholy manifestations, but we see here how it works. So once you've unlocked enough corruption, it doesn't cost you anything to use these abilities. They're free to use. But if you use it, it goes on cooldown for a pretty long time. So like Eternal War is a very, very easy, straightforward ability that I imagine most people are going to use on turn 1. But the moment you use it, it goes on cooldown for 15 turns. And I imagine that depending on how powerful the ability is, it's going to have a appropriate cooldown time. So you're not going to be spamming these abilities, but they will be very useful. Then, if Khorne is Ascendant in the Great Game, which we know that... So the Great Game, for anyone that didn't catch this in the Tzeentch article, the Great Game is for the Demons of Chaos only. It's not for the Mortals. So if you are a demon faction, then you have a unique form of corruption that when it is ascendant, you have the ability to build cults in a region or province. I'm assuming it's region, well, or maybe province. I don't know. It's not really specific, but what it does is that there are now so many forms of corruption, but for the dark gods, you are competing against the other dark gods. So you've got Tzeentch, Khorne, Nurgle, and Slaanesh corruption. If your god's corruption is the highest, and presumably you also need to be above a certain minimal percentage, you will gain the ability to make a cult in that area. So one of the cities will gain a cult slot, and you will be able to go down in there and build a structure based on who you're playing. So if you're playing as Khorne, you have the highest corruption out of the 4 Chaos Gods, and you have high enough to generate a cult, you can build one of the 4 buildings in the secret cult slot. So the first you can build is a hideout. The hideout just gives you a steady supply of skulls per turn. Great. Sounds like you're honestly going to need all the skulls you can, so the more skulls the better. Next is the fighting pit, which gives bonus skulls to every battle fought in the province. So that one is also pretty straightforward. If it's a place you are attacking and you're already fighting in that area, then a fighting pit is going to be the best one, because it means every time you fight, you're just going to get more skulls on top of what you're already getting. A lodge is that it generates a large supply of skulls per turn if a lord of any faction is present. So for a lodge, you want to use it on something your opponents are camping, or you have a character that's camping in that area for some reason. So say you go into a province, or you're attacking, let's say you're attacking Grand Cathay, right? And there's this really big, you're attacking Wei Jin, the capital where the Celestial Dragon Emperor has all his stuff. And Miao Ying is just sitting on it, defending it. So she's got a full 20 stack, and she's just sitting there. If you have high enough corruption, your best option is to build a lodge, because you're just going to be getting tons of skulls per turn, because she's just sitting there defending it instead of actually like going out and doing stuff. So you could take advantage of a faction who's very defensively minded. And then the last one, which I love, is the arena. So the arena immediately destroys the cult upon completion, but it teleports your faction leader and their army to the settlement. So obviously the only coordinate we're starting with in the game is Skarbrand. So if you finish building an arena, Skarbrand will teleport from wherever he is in the world immediately on top of that city and just start wrecking shit, which is fantastic. I actually love that both Tzeentch and Khorne have a teleport mechanic. But Tzeentch's is that you have to go all the way through your tech tree, and once you get to the end of your tech tree, you unlock teleportation as a army stance that allows you to ambush people in the battlefields, out in the campaign map. Whereas for Khorne, he has a cult mechanic where all of his cultists slaughter one another in a really big brawl, and it draws your faction leader's attention, who then immediately teleports and just starts messing people up, which is amazing. And then last is the tech tree. So the Khornate tech tree is beautiful. I love it. So where Tzeentch's tech tree was kind of like the big crazy maze, Khorne's tech tree is 8 pillars, and each of the pillars has 8 technologies. So Khorne has 64 techs that you work your way through. And in order to go through his tech tree, the way it works is you have to get at least 3 in a pillar, and then it unlocks the next pillar, and so on and so forth. And each of the pillars is a different aspect of Khorne. So you've got the pillar of rage, the pillar of war, etc. So one of the big things they kind of talk about is that Khorne, that tells a little bit of what his tree involves. So each of the pillars is based around a particular theme. So one of the pillars is full of text that just give you bonuses for fighting specific races. So, you'll have like a tech versus that gives you buffs versus humans, a tech versus the undead, presumably, a tech versus, say, like the lizardmen, and then the elves, and then the other chaos factions, whatever. So, and then the rest, maybe they'll make your units better, or they're cheaper, or faster to recruit, etc. And then apparently there's also either a very specific chance or a very specific tech, or a particular pillar that allows you to buff your blood hosts, and you can even improve your chance to colonize ruins. So the way colonizing ruins works seems to be that it's not a guaranteed timer. So it's not like, okay, I've taken the settlement, there are 3 other ruins in this area, every 3 turns I get one. It's just there is a flat percentage chance, and every turn you're basically rolling the dice. So it's if you've played the Skaven, they have a very similar mechanic with their Undercities. There's a building you could build in the Skaven Undercity system that gives you a percentage chance to spread your Undercities to a adjacent settlement. It's a very similar thing. And then, of course, every single tech in Khorne's tree costs skulls. All of them. Everything costs skulls. So it looks like they either cost 50 skulls or 100 skulls, depending on how good they are. But oh wait, no, I think that one costs 500 or 300. Okay, so it looks like there's variety on how many skulls they cost, depending on how powerful the tech is, which is great. And then the last thing, which I think is super interesting, is coordinate and demonic diplomacy. So one of the big things that they do here, and I feel that this is a nail in the coffin, is that they are making it as clear as they can, and from what I can tell, that these are demon factions. These are not mortals. These are not the Warriors of Chaos. The Warriors of Chaos are mortal servants. So Sigvald is a mortal servant, is what I think is what I genuinely think they are trying to say right here. I kind of hope that maybe in one of the coming weeks or months, they can just come out and be really clear about what exactly the distinction between the different races is. But for what I can tell, this seems to be saying that I honestly think it's clear as day that they are saying the Warriors of Chaos are not going anywhere. The Warriors of Chaos are still a race, and characters that are a part of the Warrior of Chaos are staying parts of the Warriors of Chaos. So like Sigvald's not going to be part of the Demons of Slaanesh. He's going to be part of the Warriors of Chaos. Same for Valkia, Festus the Leech Lord, Village the Curseling, etc. I would love for them to... I would honestly love a blog post purely dedicated to that, and trying to explain, or not try to, but just explain where those boundaries are and what we can expect between those two. But one thing they said in the Zinch article that they made crystal clear was that the first half of the mechanics, before you get to the cults and machinations, have to do, or the Great Game, are for all Zinchian factions, and then everything below that is for demons. And this one's the same. Everything above Unholy Manifestations and Cults is for all Khornate factions, and then everything below is for Khorne demons. So I think what's going to happen is that the Warriors of well, I'll probably make a separate video about it, but I just want to draw attention to it that for me, this is a nail in the coffin. Like, there's no discussion, there's no debate, it's over. There are Warriors of Chaos, there are Demons of Chaos, and they're not going to be under the same banner. These are not mono-god races, these are demon races that are coming into Total War Warhammer 3. And I think that the characters that we'll see coming for the Warriors of Chaos in the future will have hybrid functionality. So they will have those top mechanics, but they will also be part of the Warriors of Chaos and will have a different tech tree. They won't have access to the cult system. They're going to use probably the Warriors of Chaos, corruption, etc. But we'll have to wait and see. So anyway, the last thing they talk about is diplomacy. So they say the biggest thing is that nobody likes the demons. Everybody hates the demons. So if you are playing as the Demons of Chaos, with one exception, war is automatically declared between any demonic faction and any non-demonic faction it meets, with the exception of the other Chaos races. So Skaven, Norskins, Beastmen, and the Warriors of Chaos are mortal servants of the Dark Powers. So the Norskins, Beastmen, Warriors of Chaos, and Skaven, you can negotiate with them. You can use diplomacy with them. You can interact with them. So there is diplomacy, even if you're playing as Khorne, but only with a very specific subset of factions. Everybody else you immediately declare war on the second you meet them, which is really cool. It's actually it's like, wasn't this a feature that exists as an old, or not a, it wasn't a feature, but an achievement in the old Total War games, which was make Total War in the old games, which was declare war on any faction the second you meet them. So I think that the demons have that as a built-in policy is really, really fun. Also, to me, it explains why they're getting so many like crazy mechanics, because it really sounds like they're not going to have many friends. So, but they do note that Slaanesh actually does not fall under this system. So the demons of Slaanesh do not automatically declare war on everyone. Slaanesh is a little more seductive, a little more in on everybody, and people are willing to talk to Slaanesh. So I'm really excited that Slaanesh, we're already getting a hint of some of his unique mechanics, and that he will have access to the diplomacy, which is hopefully, or with everyone, which is hopefully getting a rework. So the other thing they say is that demons may ally with other demons, but there is always rivalries, and Khorne in particular greatly hates Slaanesh. So it sounds like you can. So they note you do not automatically declare war on Slaanesh if you're playing as Khorne. So if you're a Khornate faction and you run into the demons of Slaanesh, you do not immediately declare war on them. However, you have a significant penalty to your diplomacy with the demons of Slaanesh. You can work with them, but it's going to take a lot of effort. You will have a great amount of disdain towards them. But they also note that unique to Khorne is that a significant number of his texts and decisions come with diplomacy debuffs. Khorne is really big on pissing everybody off, and he doesn't really give a shit. And even furthermore, the Exiles of Khorne, who is Skarbrand's faction, have diplomatic penalties with other Khornate factions. Because everyone is still super salty about the time he backstabbed, their mutual god, which is absolutely fantastic. So the note being here, don't play Khorne to make friends. Play Khorne to make war. And that's pretty much it. So they note that they'll talk a little bit more about Skarbrand later on, and Skarbrand even has a Skarbrand can make strategic alliances, but you're probably just going to be killing everything. So that's going to be it for Khorne. Honestly, I've got to say that the mechanic systems for all of the different races we've seen so far, Cathay, Kislev, Khorne, and Tzeentch, have completely knocked it out of the park. I mean, each one of these has been a insane home run. Particularly the demons. The Khornate demons and the Tzeentch demons look just insanely awesome, and I am growing ever more excited for this game with every day that passes. We're getting tons of news, and I'm starting to really regret that I have to go to Scotland in a few weeks, because I feel like I'm gonna miss a whole bunch of important stuff, but we'll deal with that as best we can. And I'm so excited for Nurgle and Slaanesh. I'm so excited for Nurgle and Slaanesh, and hopefully Be'lakor. So yeah, let me know what you guys think down in the comment section below. Who's your favorite so far? So of the Grand Cathay, Kislev, Khorne, and Tzeentch, who's your favorite mechanic system so far? Honestly, man, I'm having a really hard time, guys. Like, I feel like when I get my hands on the game, I'm just gonna have to do a stream where I roll dice to like determine who I'm gonna play first or something, because like oh man, every army looks really fun. Like, nobody looks boring. Everyone looks like they have a lot of really interesting systems going on, and some like fun effects and just crazy bullshit. And I'm really excited for it. I'm really excited for it. And man, I'll tell you what, I feel like there's probably, well, no, I'll save that for later. Anyway, so let me know what y'all think. Do you like this? Do you hate it? Who's your favorite so far? And I'll see you guys around. Thanks so much for watching. I think I've been talking for more than long enough, and I'll see you next time. Have a great day.